Price's work as, an anthropological masterpiece that shows how important diet is for teeth and how our teeth really model how we should eat for whole body health.
Dr. Lin, I think a lot of people are familiar with vitamin K, which is usually just called vitamin K, but what it really means is vitamin K1. And we know that the dietary sources are green leafy vegetables of various sorts, your spinach and kale and broccoli, and they're all good for you. But what are the dietary sources of vitamin K2?
Yes, vitamin K2 is part of a family that is very related to vitamin K1, but we often are told that they are the same, and they are not. They do very different things. Vitamin K2 comes from foods such as organ meats, grass-raised butter, dairy, other dairy such as cow's milk, whole fat yogurt. The important thing with dairy is that it needs to be grass-raised, because what Price found is he watched people in Switzerland where they would take the cows up to the fast-growing spring grass, and he measured the amount of K2, or activated X as he called it in his book, as being some of the richest that he found in butter around the world. That's because the cows were converting the K1 to K2, and so that's what our animal products do for us, is that they convert this K1 to K2 because our bodies don't do it very efficiently. So when you eat green vegetables, you'll only convert a very small amount in the liver to vitamin K2. And that's why we need dietary sources of these fat-soluble nutrients, vitamin A and vitamin D, the same from these animal sources that have been raised naturally in organic situations.
Now, I have to tell you, Dr. Lin, Americans love pills. And so we like to take our vitamins and our minerals in pill form. Oh, we'll take a multivitamin. Oh, we'll take a little extra vitamin D because, goodness gracious, the sun is bad and will cause skin cancer. And, of course, you have a problem with skin cancer in Australia as well. So for the most part, people think, I'll just take a pill and that'll solve the problem. You're talking about vitamin K2. I'll just take some vitamin K2. I'll go down to the health food store and find a pill. What's your perspective on nutrients like the ones you've been talking about in pills versus food?
Yeah, it's a great point, because really what Price talked about was that, there was so much knowledge in how we raise food and how that there is a close relationship between what goes on your plate and what goes into your body. And so I really do believe that we need to get back to this relationship, because we're missing out on things that we just don't know are there. And what the physiology and what the science has showed us in the last 10 to 20 years is that we know very little about what we're doing to ourselves, and that we really need to trust nature in a way. That Mother Nature is far more wise than we could ever be in a scientific lab, and that food raised in a natural environment, from natural soil, without the additives of chemicals or other things. Now, vitamins is the same perspective. In pill form, we can really only give ourselves, a limited form of this. However, for people that are deficient, I've found that some people do need supplementation of some of these nutrients because they're slow for the body to accumulate. So vitamin D supplementation, vitamin K2 supplementation, in some situations where we have dental disease or we have deficiency, or even people that live in cold climates. So if you live above a certain 37 degrees, I think, horizontal latitude, then you don't get the sunlight that converts to vitamin D. So there are situations where I think supplementation is helpful. We can use this science, but food is ultimately the way for us to guide better health.
Now, when we talk about the traditional relationships and the traditional knowledge, the keepers of that traditional knowledge are usually the grandmothers and the grandfathers. Can you tell us about learning anything from your grandmother?
Absolutely. So I have Chinese heritage. So my father's side immigrated to Australia from China. They're Cantonese speaking, and my grandparents made a way. My grandmother actually worked 4 jobs to support her family, but one of those jobs ended up being a Chinese food shop. And early on in my childhood, I remember going through her kitchen. She would cook at home and also in the restaurant, but there would be these slow cooking soups. And I remember the smell of these soups, and just remember thinking, as this bowl was sitting in front of me, that it was like a nourishment, that it was like a grandmother giving you a big hug. And my grandmother is still alive today. She's the last of my grandparents still alive, and she's seen great health throughout her life because of, I believe, this relationship that she found through food and she tried to pass on to us. And I've really found that understanding that has been, a critical connector in where we need to find our relationship back to these nutritive principles, because we've lost them. And, I think there's a lot of knowledge in our previous generations that we should really give some respect and credence, because there is a lot there and it's valuable.
Well, moving on from the wisdom of your grandmother to the dental diet, can you tell us a little bit of the staples of the diet? So if we were to come home with you and spend a week watching what you and your family are eating, what would be the foods that would be especially good for our teeth in the dental diet?
Sure, yeah, that's let's start with breakfast, right? So one thing with breakfast is that the first thing with my patients is we really need to take out the cereals, get rid of any of the cereal boxes, and we need to start having a nourishing breakfast. And so the best way to base this, I've found, is with good old-fashioned omelette or frittata in the morning. And so cooked in saturated fats, so either a coconut oil or a lard-based pan. We'll throw some eggs in there. We'll throw some onions, some prebiotics, some garlic, some greens, a little bit of spinach around to give it some color. And then we'll keep it simple, and we'll put some butter on top, and we'll toss it up as some scrambled eggs, or however you like your eggs. And then maybe a little bit of spice to add some flavor at the end. And keeping it simple with those kinds of ingredients really, I've found to be a modern way to implement traditional style eating. And so for lunch, something like a salad-based food with either a fish or a avocado-based salad with some fermented food like a sauerkraut on the side as a probiotic. And there's also K2 in sauerkraut, by the way. Alongside, for instance, a pate or a cold meat platter or some cheeses, I find is good in the middle of the day. And then at night, we're gonna cook something like a grass-raised cow or lamb liver fry-up. And so I love my fry-ups. They're easy. You know what's going in. You can control the taste. We base it in a lard. We cook it so quickly so it's nice and soft, putting some turmeric and some spices in with the garlic and onions and some carrots and some greens on the side, some steamed greens. And, it's really quite simple. I taught myself, this more traditional way of eating. It was a process for myself. I looked at my diet and I found that I was eating, these modern foods that they weren't giving me the nutrients that my body needs. And so it's something everyone can do. And building this relationship has been, both great for my family. I have a 8-week-old son who has a very round head, and we watch it every day. And, I think that everyone should be getting this relationship back to their food.
So in summing up, Dr. Lin, what would you like our listeners to take away from your book, The Dental Diet? And how would you like them to nurture their microbiome in the mouth?
The food, you do have the ability to prevent dental diseases, and it includes braces in kids. And so there is hope there. Never feel that your dental disease is hopeless, and that you can find this relationship back via food to heal your body. And there are key markers in the mouth. If you do have gum disease, if you do have tooth decay, take it as a message from the body that, right, we need to fix this. We need to build up these core nutrients that create strong teeth and bones and immune systems and gut microbiomes and the connection to our brain, and that really our mouth is the best way to model how all of these systems work together, and that we can build this relationship with foods. And so anyone with gut issues, begin in the mouth, always heal the mouth alongside the digestive system. And, you really have the power. The mouth is a very accessible thing. So instead of seeing it as something that we avoid, I think we really need to be thinking about it more at the forefront of our health rather than as a side note or as something that we really kind of avoid.
Dr. Stephen Lin, thank you so much for talking with us on the People's Pharmacy today.
It was such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Dr. Stephen Lin. He's author of The Dental Diet, the surprising link between your teeth, real food, and life-changing natural health. Dr. Lin's book contains recipes and meal plans to prevent the oral health problems he described.
The recipes in Dr. Lin's book sound really yummy. For example, he tells how to make Asian-style seafood soup with zucchini and carrot noodles, or lemongrass and ginger baked fish with broth and cucumber rice. How about paprika and garlic spiced chicken wings with zucchini fries? Or chili butter prawn salad? Mushroom masala bake sounds really good to me.
Terry, Dr. Lin emphasized the importance of vitamin K2, but it isn't very familiar to a lot of us. Where would we find it in foods?
Well, just as we use the orange, yellow, and red pigments from vegetables to make vitamin A, animals use the vitamin K1 in grass and other leafy foods to make vitamin K2. This is a fat-soluble vitamin, so fats from grass-fed animals like full-fat milk, cheese, butter, or ghee are all good sources of vitamin K2. Another source you might not expect are fermented foods. Bacteria make a form of vitamin K2 that's called MK7, so yogurt, aged cheese, sauerkraut, and natto, which is a fermented soybean product, are also good sources. Remember, if you've been delaying your dental visit, check with the office to learn what infection control procedures they have in place.
Lynn Siegel produced today's show. Al Wodarski engineered. Dave Graydon edits our interviews. B.J. Liederman composed our theme music.
The People's Pharmacy is a co-production of North Carolina Public Radio, WUNC.
The People's Pharmacy is brought to you in part by Verizana, an analytical laboratory providing home health tests for hormones, gut health, and the microbiome. Online at verisana.com.
And by CocoVia, offering plant-based nutrients in the form of cocoa flavanols for brain and heart health. Online at cocovia.com.
To buy a CD of today's show or any other People's Pharmacy episode, you can call 800-732-2334. Today's show, 1242. Online at peoplespharmacy.com.
When you visit the website, you can share your thoughts about today's show, or you can subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcast provider. We post it on our website every Monday morning.
At our website, you can sign up for our free online newsletter to get the latest news about COVID-19 and other important health stories. In Durham, North Carolina, I'm Joe Graydon.
And I'm Terry Graydon. Thank you for listening. Please join us again next week. Thank you for listening to the People's Pharmacy Podcast. It's an honor and a pleasure to bring you our award-winning program week in and week out. But producing and distributing this show as a free podcast takes time and costs money.
If you like what we do and you'd like to help us continue to produce high-quality, independent healthcare journalism, please consider chipping in.
All you have to do is go to peoplespharmacy.com/donate.
Whether it's just one time or a monthly donation, you can be part of the team that makes this show possible. Thank you for your continued loyalty and support. We couldn't make our show without you.